Okay, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video and also a stream here that we're going to be doing. So first off, I want to apologize for the lighting and the audio a little bit. I'm doing this pretty late at night, so that's why the lighting's off. I have really bad lighting, and then the audio, just kind of the same thing. Yeah, so basically what we're going to be doing in this video is that we're going to be talking about what is going on at Treyarch and about this brand new article that Kotaku has posted today about Treyarch and about what's going on there and fetching all this stuff. So before we get into that, we're just going to check a couple things that are going on, make sure everything's alright. And yeah, okay, are we ready to go? I'm going to pull up the chat here. And then we're going to be good to go. Yo, what's up everybody? Yo, Days Edit, what's up dude? What's up Cora? How's it going? Alright, let's do this. So, basically, if you don't know what happened, Treyarch has been having a rough time over the past, I would say, 2 years or so with Black Ops 4, and this article is basically going to compile everything that kind of went wrong with Black Ops 4 and also stuff that's going on right now at Treyarch. So, here we go. Let's just get started. So he says here that one Friday afternoon a few weeks ago, the developers at Treyarch held a happy hour event to welcome summer interns. There's pizza, beer, and jubilation for everyone in the studio behind Call of Duty Black Ops 4, except the quality assurance testers, who had to leave shortly after they got there. QA was told we were only allowed down at the party for a max of 20 minutes, and we really shouldn't drink anything because we still had to work, said one tester. It sucks, but honestly we're pretty used to getting these sorts of rules when they do any parties here. It was a small affront, but it felt indicative of a bigger problem. At Treyarch, many contract employees, especially the testers, say they feel like second-class citizens. Testers work on the second floor of the office, while most of the other developers are on the first. Some testers say they're told not to speak to developers in other departments, and one told me they'll only do so superfluously, out of fear of getting fired. When they get to work, testers have to park their cars in a different parking lot than other employees, one that's further away from the office. When lunch is catered, testers are told that the food downstairs is for the development team and not for them. Sometimes they're allowed to scrounge for leftovers an hour later once the non-testing staff have gotten to eat. So basically, the QA staff is getting treated terribly compared to the normal staff. He goes, put another way, when I asked a non-tester at Treyarch about the party, they responded, surprised they were invited at all, because why would QA testers even be thought about in this? So here's what's going down at Treyarch. So you got their core development team. You got their programmers, everybody else, Vonderhaar, Mark Lamia, all those guys over here. They're kind of like Treyarch staff. And then you got the QA testers, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But these guys are contracted out to help Treyarch and to QA test the game. And these guys have to work on the second floor on above Treyarch. They're also supposed to park in a different parking lot, which they also talk about in this article is like a 10-minute commute from the actual office or whatever. So they have to park clear far away. And they're also told you can't speak to any developers. And they, kind of go on a little bit here to say that part of the reason is because you don't want to have 6 people or 5 people or whatever going to one person being like, hey, this is what's going on. Rather, all those people can go to one person, their head QA person, and that one person can take it to this person. That way, you don't have all this overhead and overlap. You just have, one and one. But the way it's apparently phrased here, not for this article, but it's phrased to these QA testers, is you are not supposed to talk to any Treyarch staff at all. Do not talk to them at company parties. You're not allowed to even eat the food with them. You're maybe can scrounge for leftovers an hour later, or sometimes not even supposed to eat it all, and that food isn't even for you. So then they say that Call of Duty Black Ops 4 released last October is the latest entry in Activision's massively popular first-person shooter series. It made more than $500 million in its first 3 days on sale, helping ensure that Activision's 2018 financial results were what Chief Executive Bobby Kotick called the best in our history. It was also a turbulent production marked by a drastic reboot, the last-minute addition of a Battle Royale mode, and what one developer described as perpetual crunch that perhaps the QA team hit hardest. Many of Treyarch's employees are not full-time staff but contractors, which means that, among other things, they don't qualify for the bonuses that full-timers might get from all those Black Ops 4 sales. According to Glassdoor aggregates and testimonials from employees to Kotaku, Treyarch's QA testers are paid a base wage of around $13 an hour, so that's pretty standard for California. That's a little bit over minimum wage. For the past year or so, they say that they've been working around 70 hours a week. So just to put that in perspective, a normal work week is 40 hours. If you do 9 to 5, you do 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's a 40-hour work week. This is almost double that. This is almost like 70 hours a week is a lot. And they say, so it was a gut punch to at least a few of them when in January this year, news broke that video game publisher Activision had given a cash and stock bonus worth up to $15 million to its new chief financial officer, Dennis Durkin. They didn't even qualify for a $15 bonus. So Homeboy here, their new CFO, just got a $15 bonus at the beginning of this year of 2019. And, you got employees like Clear Down, just making $13 an hour, working 70 hours a week. You can bet that Homeboy here probably isn't even working a full 40 hours a week, and he's just walking, away with a bonus of $15 million. So they say that that broke a lot of people, so the tester who left shortly afterwards were getting paid these very minimal amounts, working these ridiculous hours, yet these people are getting paid absurd amounts of money. It's just a culture of not being cared about. But okay, I just want to comment here real quick that this is kind of how a lot of companies in America work. I mean, obviously, like when you got huge corporations, you got the people at the very top, CEOs, CFOs, that stuff. They're making millions. And then you got the people at the very bottom, just kind of like slaving away doing like minimum wage. That's how everything works. It's not specific to Activision, but this isn't to just like justify any of that. But this is, isn't the one thing that broke the camel's back. This is a long list of things that have been going wrong with it. So, thank you for the news. I can't find anyone that does this. Why are they treating them so poorly? Basically, they're treating them poorly because they can, and because they're contracted out, and because honestly, they think that it's low effort job. To be a QA tester, all you got to do is play video games. If you want to be any like full-time staff at Treyarch or whatever, you got to go to school for a couple of years and you got to learn programming or do whatever else. But if you want to be a QA tester, you just got to play games for like 12 hours a day. And so they kind of regard them as like these like really low-skilled employees who are like completely replaceable. And if they treat them like garbage, oh well, more people will come in. So they have like really no purpose in treating them with any respect, which we're going to keep going on and talking about. So they say that this account of Treyarch's studio culture and the development of Call of Duty Black Ops 4 is based on interviews with 11 current and former staff members, all of whom spoke anonymously in order to protect their careers. They described a company in which contractors and particularly testers feel like they're perceived and treated as inferior. Throughout Black Ops 4's rocky development, testers said that they worked under unfair conditions, a theme that's common in the video game industry, but one that remains worth scrutinizing. Those who spoke to us for this story said that they did so because they hope that public pressure will lead the studio to change, which we're also going to get into. Actually has changed a few things. Treyarch actually sent out an email to their employees because of this interview today. So we're going to read that after we go over this whole thing. They say, when reached by Kotaku, Activision would not make Treyarch's management available for interviews or comment on the specifics of this story, but did offer a broad written statement attributed to the studio. They say, this comes from Activision right here, Black Ops 4 represents 3 years of hard work, creativity, and passion from hundreds of talented individuals across Treyarch. Activision studios and publishing teams, as well as agency partners around the world, it represents the culmination of a wide variety of development initiatives, the best of which comprise the game that our fans are playing today. The teams who created this game are diverse and widespread. It's important to us that everyone working on this game, or any of our projects, is treated with respect and that their contributions are appreciated. If there is ever an instance where the standard is not met, we work to remedy it immediately. We constantly strive to provide a rewarding and fun development environment for everybody. Everyone at Treyarch is extremely proud of Black Ops 4. We love bringing games to life, and we always want to do the best work of our careers. We realize that this is only made possible through the varied perspectives and contributions from every individual working on the team. Where'd I go? Okay. So that was the statement by Activision. Can I scoot this over at all? Gosh dang it. Come on, Kotaku. Why is there article right justified? Dang, that sucks. Oh well. Alright. Then he says, so now we're actually going to be going over what the development process for Black Ops 4 is like. Yo, what's up? How's it going? Welcome to the stream. Talking a little bit about Black Ops 4 here and about the development process. So, at the beginning of 2018, about 2 years into the development of Black Ops 4, Treyarch employees were called into a conference room for some bad news. The game's campaign mode, which was to be centered on an ambitious 2 versus 2 multiplayer mechanic, was cancelled. For some studio veterans, it felt like history repeating itself. Treyarch's last game, Black Ops 3, was planned to feature an open world until the team rebooted midway through production, scrapping the open-ended map in favor of a traditional linear campaign. This overhaul led to a difficult period of crunch for many Treyarch employees, who had to make up for all the lost work with extra hours. Now they were worried they might have to do the same on Black Ops 4. For this to happen twice, the morale drop that happened in the studio can't be understated, said one former employee. They've been promised after Black Ops 3, we're not going to do that again. We're not going to scrap all this work that you've been putting in. This time, the plan had been to do something very different from the previous Call of Duty campaigns. Black Ops 4 was set after Black Ops 3's story, but rather than play through the campaign yourself, you'd play alongside a partner battling against a pair of human opponents. If you wanted to play single player, they'd all be AI-driven bots. Each side would pick a faction and be able to compete to gun down enemies and battle over different objectives in a post-apocalyptic world. One side might try to destroy a convoy, for example, while the other side worked to protect it. Or maybe one faction would set off to protect a journalist, while the other faction tried to assassinate them. Each mission would give you chances to get into shootouts with the other team, hampering their progress if you did well. During different moments throughout the story, you'd get the chance to defect and switch sides if you weren't happy with the choices your faction was making. In the waning months of 2017, so at the very end of 2017, right up before Christmas, the campaign team put in extra hours to finish a demo of this 2v2 campaign for an Activision milestone just before Christmas. They got a few missions working, complete with full art and voice acting, then went off to their holiday break. Everybody crunches really hard to get that done, and we do. Said one person on this team. We go to the holiday party in Las Vegas. The studio heads come up and say, hey, you guys did a fantastic job. Everyone's really excited. And then after that break, however, the mood started to shift. Over the first few weeks of 2018, Treyarch's leadership began informing groups of employees that they were cutting the campaign. There were technical concerns, timing issues, and according to one person who was there, negative feedback from playtesters who felt like the gameplay was too repetitive. So they decided to pivot. They'd take all the work they put in the 2v2 campaign and morph it into a traditional single-player story. The idea was, what if we spruce it up, put more explosions in, set pieces, said one Treyarch staffer, then maybe people will get that classic Call of Duty feel from this. But there wasn't much time left. They had originally scheduled for Black Ops 4 for a release in November, as was traditional for Call of Duty games, but Rockstar put a wrench in that, bumping the highly anticipated Western Red Dead Redemption 2 from spring 2018 to October 26th. To try and preempt the cowboy game, Activision decided to shift Black Ops 4 forward to October 12th, which meant Treyarch's developers had one fewer month than they thought. Basically, what's going on here is that they were going to do a November release date like they've always done with Call of Duty games, but Activision was like, see, if we have Red Dead Redemption 2 coming out in October 26th, and then we have our Call of Duty game coming out in November, we're going to be screwed because lots of players are going to spend that $60 on Red Dead Redemption 2, and for some players, they're not going to have money to go and buy Black Ops 4. And so they're going to miss out on Black Ops 4 until Christmas or whatever, and they're going to be focused on playing Red Dead Redemption 2 and not really want to go into Black Ops 4. Well, what if they move Black Ops 4 up a month? Then, this is the new game, people are going to buy this, and then, this one, the chance they beat this one, Red Dead Redemption 2 to market, then they can just kind of roll over it. So basically that's what Activision wanted to do, But what this, kind of amounted to is a full month just taken away from the development cycle. But okay, when you think about a 3-year Call of Duty game, that's 36 months. Take it away 1 month, 35 months. That's still a long amount of time. But, as they say here, they had already been working on the campaign and Black Ops 4 for 2 years. So for over 24 months, they had put in working on this, and Treyarch, they're scrapping it. They're taking out the campaign. They don't mention this in this article, but we've had lots of talk about how the multiplayer for Black Ops 4 was scrapped right around this time because it was supposed to initially be kind of like an Overwatch style shooter with lots of heroes and stuff like that. And so they just scratched all of that and just made it like it was. And it was also supposed to feature advanced movement, but of course, we had that huge blowback from Infinite Warfare specifically, so that, wasn't going to fly. And so they say, people are saying, how can we do this? Create an entirely new campaign that takes everything we put into this other mode that was unsuccessful and still tells our story. After a few weeks, it became clear that developing a brand new campaign wasn't practical. Everyone realizes at this point, this is absurd, this is impossible. So they made a second scope change, this time eliminating the campaign entirely, which left Black Ops 4 with 2 main components: traditional player versus player multiplayer and the supernatural zombies mode, in which players would gun down hordes of undead. Call of Duty fans would expect more than just those 2 modes, so Treyarch's leadership had to come up with something else. As it turned out, many of the staff had been playing a lot of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, the mega popular battle royale game that had launched in 2017, and Fortnite's free take on the game had just morphed into a cultural phenomenon. Why not do a Call of Duty themed battle royale? What emerged was Blackout, a 100-player deathmatch set up on a massive map that could salvage some of the campaign's assets, but needed a whole lot of work from scratch. Now we have an even shorter amount of time to put in work on a new mode, said a developer. Actual development on Blackout didn't start until 9 months before launch. That mode came together by the seat of its pants. It's kind of a miracle that it did. So, February 2018 is basically when Blackout got started. And we also have talk that the campaign got scratched around January, so they cut campaign and started working on Blackout. Multiplayer was kind of scratched and started again around this time. So they had 9 months to make Blackout. So if you guys are worried about, I'm talking about any bad things that happen to Blackout, if you have any complaints about Blackout, this is pretty much why Blackout kind of, has a lot of issues and stuff. Let me read some comments real quick. It's been a while since I've been in the chat. Yeah, I haven't streamed in a while. So here when I drink the V8 drink. Rewatch this later, gotta go to bed, got school tomorrow. Alright, that's cool. I understand. But basically, multiplayer was scratched, and also Blackout, or the campaign was scratched, and they had to create an all-new multiplayer, Blackout, and still do zombies by the time that the game actually, came out. So, and the game was coming out a month early. So, huge crunch. They say that it was February 2018 and the game had to be out in October. What that meant for Treyarch, as anyone who follows the video game industry can probably guess, was lots and lots of crunch. Long nights and weekend hours that, while not technically mandatory, were expected of the developers on the Black Ops 4 team. So let me just kind of butt in real quick with a little bit of a personal story. So my buddy, he worked construction, right? Last year he worked construction, and he was working 12, maybe 13-hour days, but, obviously, it was only required. The job, description, everything was just waking up. I think, he had to be at work at, 7, so he'd work from, he was supposed to work from, 7 to 3, an 8-hour shift. But it ended up being, 7 till maybe, 6. So it would be, what was that? An 11-hour day, or even till 7 o'clock. A 9-hour day. 12-hour day. And it wasn't mandatory, but it's hey, you should really do this. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We need you to help with this. So it's you're not technically required, but it's if you don't do this, there's probably going to be consequences, and everyone's going to be upset about you and mad at you, and you might not have a job after this. Obviously there's wrongful termination laws and stuff like that, but it's not explicitly required, but it's like heavily expected. And that's just kind of how a lot of jobs go. It's like, on paper, you're not supposed to, and it's, you're only working 8 hours, but it's like, but you're actually working 12 or whatever. So employees at Treyarch spent most of 2018 crunching to finish Black Ops 4. According to all those interviewed for the story, one developer estimated that during crunch time, they'd work 12 hours from Monday through Thursday, a standard 8-hour day on Friday, and then another 8 hours on Saturday for a total of 64 hours per week. If things got bad, they say you do a 12-hour day Friday and maybe even a Sunday. So, you'd hop on another 4 hours on Friday. So that'd bump you up to 68 hours. And maybe even a Sunday. Sunday would probably be like 8 hours. So you'd be doing like 76 hours a week. Now, let me just, hurry and pop up calculator. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 168 hours minus what I say. Let's see. So we had 12-hour Fridays, so that's 68. And then you'd probably do like another 8-hour Saturday, and then another 8-hour Sunday, so another 16 hours plus 68. 68 plus 16, 84. And then there's 24 times 7, 168 minus 84. So you'd literally be spending half of your week. Well, I guess, yeah, duh. Sorry, my bad. Easy math. So you'd be spending like half your week literally at work, working. And your other half of your week is probably going to be at home sleeping. There's like basically no room in there for you to have a personal life. Like think of, if you have a job right now, think of what you do when you get home after work. You might go hang out with your family or friends, or, if you're in a relationship or something like that, go see a movie. You might go play you might play Xbox, you might play games, or, whatever else. Basically, for like developers like this, that's a big no-no when it comes to crunch time like this. Like, you don't even have the weekend off because they say that you're probably going to come in Saturday for about 8 hours or so, and you might even do a Sunday. So that's ridiculous. They say that those interviewed were paid hourly in a range of departments, and said that they made anywhere from $13 to $30 an hour. Okay, it's a decent range. They were paid time and a half when they worked past 8 hours, which I'm pretty sure is the legal standard, that if you work more than 8 hours, you're technically or legally required to work time and a half. And then you would get double time when you worked past 12 hours. So if you worked like a 14-hour day, and let me bring up that calculator again. So you worked, say, a 14-hour day, and actually, you know what? Let's do this. $13 an hour, and you do let's see. Sorry. Yeah. Well, let's say $15 an hour. So you do $15 an hour, and you worked 14 hours a day, but you're making times 2 times 13. No, sorry. Let's just say 14. Okay, 420. All right. So basically, you're making a lot more money. So they said, the tail end of Black Ops 4's development led to fatter paychecks for most employees. The way it's presented, it's kind of seen as a gift, said a former Treyarch developer. They're doing a service for us by asking us to come in extra hours. I think it's a little twisted. The reality is it's more money in each paycheck. So let me explain this a little bit and talk about it a little bit personally. And basically what happens if you work overtime, or you do, it's like time and a half. Time and a half is really good. I really enjoy time and a half. With my job, working past 8 hours, okay, my job is pretty effed up, dude. And I never got time and a half. I never got any overtime, even when I worked past 8 hours. So that's a bad example, right? I'm pretty sure what I was doing was completely illegal. Anyways, this clearly, not the point. Let's take my buddy again. Let's explain for him. So when he would work an 8-hour day, he would make a standard wage. But if he worked past those 8 hours, those hours past 8 hours are time and a half. So say you work a 12-hour day, those 4 hours are time and a half. So if say you're making let's just say $14 an hour, you would actually be going up to $21 an hour for those 4 hours. So the first 8 hours are going to be 14, and then the last 4 hours are going to be $21 an hour. Now, that's really awesome. And if you work past 12 hours, then you get double. Then you get 2 times your bonus, or hours. Wage. So you may be making $28 an hour rather than, say, 14. And for some people, this is awesome, right? It's always awesome when you're getting paid more, especially for something like this. Like, if you're required and you're asked to work past 8 hours, you want to be compensated fairly, because that's your time that you're pretty much giving up. So you should be, compensated fairly, more so than your normal wage. So time and a half is a really good idea, and it, is awesome. And of course, if you're working more than 12 hours, then, double is awesome. And that's awesome. So for a lot of people, it might not be worth it having an insanely fat paycheck for putting in all that effort and all that crunch. It might not be worth it because, you're sacrificing, even like your mental health, maybe your physical health, because say if you're somebody who goes to the gym a lot, you're probably not going to be able to go to the gym like every single day or however often you go if you're working this much. If you have like a personal life with a family and you're raising kids, that's going to be a huge no-no, because like if you wake up in the morning and you're not back until late at night, your kids are probably going to be waking up, going to school or whatever, and then they're going to be going to sleep when you're getting home. So the only time you're going to be able to, be at home with your kids is when they're asleep. So for some people, it's terrible. Like, it's really hard to raise a family like that. And then for other people, it's like especially hard for having a relationship. So if you're in a relationship with somebody and you're working like 8-12-hour days, you can only spend time with that person, I don't know, maybe an hour or two every day, because of course you got to sleep as well. And so like relationships, a lot of relationships have to be kind of put on hold for things like this. And this isn't just like a Black Ops 4 and Treyarch specific thing. This is a huge thing. There's a lot of crunch for lots of stuff in the video game industry, pretty much every industry out there, right? If you think of like a movie, right? When you're early on in the movie, it's not that bad. But when it comes down to it, there's going to be some crunch time. Same with like video games are the same thing. Right before every launch of like every video game, there is huge crunch time where people are going to be putting in lots more hours to make sure that the game is like as good as possible and up to snuff before it actually releases. So, yeah, just kind of ridiculous stuff. There's even talk that there was a Black Ops 3 developer at Treyarch who actually ended up getting divorced because of his work circumstances and because he just had to work so much because of it. But let's continue. So they say those interviewed, I already talked about that. Panic attacks, burnout, dissociation. You feel like your boundaries are being violated. Use all passion for what you're doing and forget why you're doing it in the first place. It's a nightmare. In fact, for those on the lower end of the salary spectrum, getting that overtime money was the only way to live in Los Angeles. So Treyarch is based out of Santa Monica, I want to say. And so they say some current and former Treyarch employees shared anecdotes of themselves or colleagues running into financial difficulties once the crunch has ended, despite the fact that they had helped make one of the most lucrative game series on the planet. Some people have extra jobs, said one. After they did their regular 8-hour shift, they go work something else. So for some people, crunch and working on these games is a really good thing, and some people definitely do rely on that time and a half or even like double time for how they live, because LA and living in California, dude, it's insanely expensive. And especially if you're on the bottom end of the spectrum, like I said, if you're making $13 an hour, even working like, let's do it, $13 an hour, 40 hours a week, you're making $520 a week. That's probably not even enough for rent. And then you got, probably like your car payment, insurance, gas, food, like your phone bill, all this other stuff. And, like you're only making like $2,000 a month. If you're making 13 hours a day, $13 an hour, 40 hours a week. But say you're doing, that same 40 hours a week times $13 an hour times 4 weeks. Okay, $2,080 Let's say you're doing that plus you're doing, say, 12-hour days where you got 4 hours. and you're making, what is that, maybe like $19 an hour, times 19, boom, times 4, sorry, what? So $19 an hour times, and of course, those 4 hours, times, let's just say 5 days a week, times 4 weeks, okay, boom, bam, that bumps up your paycheck, basically, you know, like time and a half, whoops, okay, well, yeah, whatever. So, for a lot of people, that extra, like, time and a half and that overtime is the only way they can pay their bills, and, I mean, that's kind of ridiculous, but, you know, you always got to do what you got to do. So, they say here that for some on the team, even getting paid double overtime wasn't enough to make up for months of sustained crunch throughout 2018. Some described seeing colleagues sleep in the office, while one described a culture of drinking to cope with the crunch. There were weeks straight where I was not taking weekends, said a former Treyarch developer. They described the effects of these hours: panic attacks, burnout, dissociation. You feel like your boundaries are being violated. You lose all passion for what you're doing, and you forget why you're doing it in the first place. It's a nightmare. So I kind of want to point out here, a lot of people say, you know, if you are doing something that you love doing, then you're never going to work a day in your life. That is complete bull. Complete bull. And if you don't believe me, then like you're going to have to just try it for yourself. So these guys working at Treyarch, and they even say this in the article, they love what they do. If they didn't love making video games and if they weren't passionate about Black Ops 4, they wouldn't be doing it. But they, you know, they obviously love the game and they want to make the game as, you know, as best as possible. But when you're seriously working that much and you're just sitting there constantly working, if you're a programmer or you're a coder, you know, you're constantly just making, you know, putting in code 12 hours a day, like 7 days a week with no weekends for weeks straight. Even if you're doing something as much as, you know, great and awesome as you want to do, like something that's just fantastic, like developing, you know, a Call of Duty game and something that you love doing, if you're doing it that much, you're going to hate it. I promise you. And that's basically what they're saying, is that it's a nightmare, you know? Like, you feel like your boundaries are being violated and there's a lot of burnout and you lose all passion for what you're doing. Say Treyarch has embraced a culture of crunch to make Call of Duty games, and before that, Spider-Man games, but for many on the Black Ops 4 team, the last year has been particularly brutal. I was told crunch would end after we released the game, that developer said. Then I was told crunch would end after winter break. Then I was told crunch would end once we got into the summer. That developer left the company in hopes of finding a better work-life balance elsewhere. Different departments at Treyarch faced varying levels of crunch. Towards the end of Black Ops 4's development and in the months after its release, the company asked its testing department to put in the most hours. People who I felt sorry for and really bore all that brunt were the QA members, said a former Treyarch employee. Sometimes we were pushing updates twice in a week, which is absurd. As Black Ops 4 was live, it was progressively getting got more broken and buggier, not because the developers didn't know what the problem was, but because they didn't have time to fix it. From Black Ops 4's release in October 2018 until early this year, Treyarch was putting out new patches constantly. With each of these updates came a brand new build, and with every brand new build, the quality assurance testers had to jump in, pushing the game's boundaries in hopes of finding all of the bugs before that update went live. As a general rule, the video game industry does not treat testers well. QA is perceived as the bottom of the development hierarchy, with many viewing them as unskilled labor. But testers at Treyarch said that they got that even by video game standards, they had it especially bad. In the summer of 2018, as temperatures in Los Angeles surged to the 80s and 90s, many of the testers at Treyarch found themselves facing their own heat wave. The QA department at Treyarch is broken up into day and night shifts. During crunch time, those two shifts would cover the full 24 hours. The day shift would come in at 10 a.m. and leave at 10 p.m., while the night shift would do the inverse, arriving at 10 p.m. and exiting at 10 a.m. One thing that they added to the stress of this extended schedule, according to 3 people who've worked in testing at Treyarch, was that the office kept turning the air conditioning off at night once all the developers had left. Although the night air was cooler, the rows of computers and consoles ran no less hot. We were still there and have all these things running, so the temperature would basically spike to 90-something degrees, said one tester. A couple of jokes were made about sweatshops and all that, but it's terrifying because it was sometimes, especially in the dead because it kind of was sometimes, and especially in the dead of July. They told us the AC was broken, even though it worked all day and turned off at the exact time each day, said a second tester. No matter how much we pressed them to do something or get it fixed, nothing would happen. I had coworkers who were literally sweating through their clothing. It took 2 months of QA leads desperately emailing the office before Treyarch started leaving the air conditioners on for the night shift. The first tester said even then they would forget sometimes. So this is a huge, I can't believe that. That's a huge deal and completely BS. So imagine this, right? You're already working 12-hour days. That's an insane amount, right? You're working a 12-hour day and you're already at the bottom of this hierarchy. Everybody craps on you. You're probably not getting paid a ton. And you're having to sit here literally sweating while you play. And, okay, I know a lot of people's jobs out there, right? Like, this isn't a bad thing, right? A lot of people sweat in their jobs. There's a lot of manual labor jobs out there where you're going to be hot, you're going to be sweaty or whatever. But for something like this, where you're in an office building, you have the capability to change that, right? Treyarch has the capability. They have an air conditioning system, but they wouldn't use it. Like, that's just completely insane and unacceptable. That you would treat your employees like that, and you're literally sitting there sweating, you're doing your job, and you're sweating, and you're not even moving because they refuse to turn on the air conditioning. And they said for 2 months they wouldn't do anything about it, and then they finally started doing it, and then even still sometimes they would forget. That's just ridiculous. They say that Treyarch's office building in Santa Monica, California, is just down the street from the Activision corporate headquarters. Most of the development team, the artists, the designers, the programmers sit on the first floor. Other than some members of the animation team, they park their cars in the main parking lot, get fed free meals often, and are regularly looped into company meetings where they get updates on Treyarch's projects and briefings about the state of the studio. So that's the Treyarch employees. They have it, decently nice. And, it's a pretty common work environment. All right, not bad. Well, the testers operate in a different world. They all work on the second floor, crammed together as groups of 10 or 12 people in bays meant for 6 or 7. They're told to park in a different lot, about a 10-minute walk from the building. You guys have to walk a long way, so add that to your commute, one tester recalls being told when they were hired. Instead of getting to take breaks for lunch and dinner when they feel like eating, they have mandated and unpaid break hours, and although they get catered dinner during crunch, they're told not to eat the lunch provided to non-testing developers until an hour after it's being served. Sometimes they're told not to touch it at all. So they bring in food, they cater food, that's a giant plus for employees. But these guys are told, you guys can't have any. You guys gotta wait, and if there's leftovers, then you guys can have it. And even then, sometimes, no, you guys can't have it this time. Why? When Treyarch sends out surveys about company health, testers aren't included. When the company holds all-hands meetings, testers aren't invited. Often testers say that they're asked to work crunch hours with little notice or transparency, which makes it difficult for them to have lives outside of the office. Frequently, said one, we wouldn't know if we worked weekends until Friday night. Can you imagine not being able to make any weekend plans? Your girlfriend's like, hey, can we go see a movie this weekend? You're like, I have no idea. I might work, I might not. I'm not even going to find out until Friday night. That blows. Studio keeps so much information from its QA department that when we reported last month that Treyarch would be taking a lead role on Black Ops in 2020, testers say they learned it from Kotaku. Just to recap a little bit here, I made a video about this on the channel. Kotaku posted an article saying that they that Black Ops 5 is coming out in 2020, and that Sledgehammer Games ain't getting booted, and that Treyarch is stepping in. So 2018 Treyarch, 2019 Infinity Ward Modern Warfare, and then 2020 is Treyarch again. So I already made a video about this, but that all came from Kotaku, from the same guy who made this article. Well, the QA department say that they've learned that Treyarch, their studio, the place they work at, isn't working, or that they, are making this game. They didn't even know about it until the title of their article dropped. They didn't even know what Treyarch was doing until Kotaku, completely like unrelated, like this is just a journalism site, they posted about it. They say a couple days later received an email that actually wasn't meant for them, confirming the new title. And they say when they tried to ask about it, they said, don't worry about it. Okay. So I had a conversation with Harrison about this a little bit earlier today. And he says that, I mean, he understands the whole don't worry about it thing. But it's kind of BS. Like, your company, right, is making the game in 2020, right? So everybody expected that Treyarch was going to make another game in 2021. You know, we've had 3-year development cycles for a while now, but when, you know, Kotaku reported that Sledgehammer Games was getting the axe and their game was getting canceled, and instead Treyarch's moving up a year, that means that for Black Ops 5, there's only 2 years of development, right? So instead of saying to your staff, saying, hey guys, so this is what's happening. We're going to be making a game a year earlier than we expected. So this is what our plan is for the game. Just kind of be aware that this is when we have to ship this next product, is in 2020 instead of 2021. Right? This is what's happening, just to give you guys some, you know, like heads up. This is what's going on. Instead, they had no idea. They had to find out through Kotaku, the same place you and I found out. And then they got an email that totally was like by mistake, confirming the new title. And then when they tried to ask about it, they were told, don't worry about it. So these guys basically had no idea about the game. And if they wouldn't have seen this article from Kotaku or received that email that totally wasn't meant for them, they would still have no idea that Treyarch was making Black Ops 5. And in some instances, I understand why they say no, don't worry about it, because like for QA testers, yeah, I mean, you know, you shouldn't be insanely worried about what we're doing. You know, you guys just have to work on, you know, the game. You guys can just focus on Black Ops 4 right now, making sure the Black Ops 4 tests well and any updates they put out to the game, you know, like are doing well and stuff. But I kind of understand that. But where they don't even send them an email telling them, hey, here's a heads up. This is when we're launching the game. This is what our plan is for Black Ops 4 and stuff. That's really messed up. So they say one major reason for the secrecy may be a lack in trust in the QA department in the wake of a massive leak last fall from a fired tester. Okay, that was a huge story, and I might still make a video on it. I'm not 100% sure. Let's go ahead and let's open this up a little bit. This is what happens, and he talked about. So he was a QA tester called Nobody Cares. He leaked tons of stuff. Look at all this stuff. There's a huge Reddit list of all these Easter eggs and zombies stuff that is going on. I mean, right here. Nuketown Zombies is 100% happening, but no date for when. DLC 1 is a prequel to the Chaos storyline, 4 new characters. That's Dead of the Night. Okay, cool. It's planned to have more maps that follow the Aether storyline. Okay, DLC 3 and 4. We know that. Yep, exactly. They talk about so much stuff in here. The Black Ops 4 campaign was worked on until mid-2017 with scraps due to wanting to make too many multiplayer maps. It was designed to be a 2v2 co-op race to finish each mission. Okay, that lines up with that, except for mid-2017. It was more like very end of 2018, alright? Cool. One Easter egg interacting with something in Raw's basement, Tons of stuff. He even says, the next title update, Speed Cola will return. That ended up happening. Speed Cola is now in the game. If you have all 4 perks, then you can reload faster. Alright, nice. The main classified Easter egg in the cutscene and the Wonder Weapon. There's no Easter egg like the other maps with the boss fight. Okay. But yeah, dude. Look at all this stuff. Look at all these Easter eggs and stuff that Homeboy leaked. The Viking funeral. All this other stuff, dude. Golden Spork. Fish location. Tons of stuff. Dancing Homunculus. Cool. So much stuff that this guy leaked about the game because he was frankly tired of the way that Treyarch is treating him, and he got fired, so he was like, F it. I'm going to leak all this stuff. So this was all stuff that wasn't supposed to be found in the game until a while later. So they say that fired tester took to Reddit to spill details on all the Easter eggs that Treyarch had put inside Black Ops 4 zombie modes, secrets that the team hoped it would take months, if not years, for players to discover. The leak left a sour taste in many developers' mouths and drove resentment towards the QA department from others at Treyarch, but testers say they felt isolated even before that. There's a perception within Treyarch, like at many other game studios, that QA testers are unskilled and easily replaceable. Even some non-tester Treyarch developers interviewed for this story said that they felt that way. Throughout the development of Black Ops 4 and in the months afterwards, the frequency of game updates led to lots of bugs, which some of the QA department missed during their testing. Some of those misses might have been due to mistakes or lack of skill. Others were undoubtedly due to the pace of the work. A new update would go live, and then people would look on Reddit, said a Treyarch employee. Reddit would say, "This is broken. Fucking Treyarch. Do they not care about us?" That gets passed to QA. Then a meeting is held with QA leads. How did that go through? QA would say, "We didn't get enough time." So basically, here's what happens, right? Treyarch puts out an update to try and fix the game. And then Reddit sees this new update and craps all over it. What happened, Treyarch? Where's factions? They're like, you totally broke this gun. This is broken. Why isn't zombies? Why do I still get crashes in zombies? Why is this happening? This. Where's league play? Where's this and that and this and that? Everything. Reddit craps all over it. And then it goes back to Treyarch, and Treyarch's like, how did this happen? And QA's like, we don't have enough time. Which also, kind of goes in the cycle again, because then they try and fix all those things. They put out an update, everybody craps on the update. And this has been happening for the longest time now. This happened yesterday, right? For like a perfect example. Treyarch cannot do anything right, it seems. Yesterday they put out that update for contracts. Well, not everybody has the same contracts. Even if you literally have the exact same contract as another player, that player can receive reserve cases and XP, and you might only get the XP. So for example, literally today I tried getting some contracts with Harrison. Harrison, for the exact same challenge and contract, he gets 2 reserve cases and XP, and I get 0 reserve cases and XP. Why? Why is there a difference? It's the exact same challenge. And then they also have that blackjack stash or whatever garbage in Blackout. So Blackout is now now pay to win. That's cool. So whatever Treyarch does, it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. They're like, hey, let's put out contracts, but let's not give the same rewards, and let's also put out like blackjack stash. Like, come on. It all adds up to an atmosphere in which testers feel mistreated. You'd constantly overhear remarks and jokes about QA, said one non-QA developer at Treyarch. People blame them for issues in our game not catching something. QA is the butt of everyone's joke. Perhaps there would be better relations between developers and QA if they're allowed to fraternize, or if the QA testers could spend more than 20 minutes at company parties. But the testers at Treyarch say that they're told not to talk to developers and vice versa. I think that a lot of studios, you have members of QA that are spread across the studio, embedded with certain teams. At Treyarch, it's just one department sitting by themselves. So instead of having, QA testers kind of mingled in with each department, you're all over here in one department doing your one thing. Instead of like, hey, hey man, so I just found this bug in the game. This is what's going on. Can you fix it? Oh yeah, let me hop on that right now. Instead, it's like, I'm not supposed to actually talk to those guys, so let me draft up an email about this, send it to my lead, which is then going to pass it on to their lead and pass it down to the right person. Why can't they just talk directly? Why can't they just talk? Why can't they even be in the same area to talk? Why is there all this overhead? Makes no sense. When I started, I was told explicitly not to interact with members of QA, but instead to go directly to the QA leads for any questions that I may have. You could look at that as a way to funnel key information to the appropriate leads for members of the QA department, so there aren't any redundancies or different people coming to different members of the team with the same request. But the explicit phrasing was that you're not supposed to interact with or talk to them, which is very strange to me. Testers shared anecdotes of only communicating with their developer colleagues through the bug tracking software, Jira, or keeping friendships quiet so the company can't find out and let them go. Apparently, if you have a friendship with somebody like within Treyarch, so let's say you're a QA tester and your friend is making the artwork for the game, If you're friends, you got to keep it on the down low, or else if the company finds out, they're going to let you go. QA was for the most part completely removed from any interactions with the development team. I think at a lot of studios you have members of the QA that are spread across the studio embedded with certain teams. At Treyarch, it's just one department sitting by themselves. The developers I spoke with said that this sort of isolation isn't just bad for morale, it makes for a buggier game. Testers who feel like they're ostracized, like they can't communicate with the rest of the team, and like they aren't really part of the Black Ops 4 development staff, will inevitably fail to perform at a level that they might under better conditions. Treyarch staff interviewed for this story also emphasized that conditions in the QA department have also led to a great deal of turnover. Let me go back to this. Black Ops 4 is the worst Black Ops yet. New setup, yeah, kind of. I'll talk about that in a different stream, or maybe at the end of this one. But they say that the Treyarch staff interviewed for the story emphasized that conditions in the QA department have also led to a great deal of turnover. Seems like every other month, every other 3 months, there'd be members of the QA team who were leaving and new members brought on, said one developer. There was a lot of churn. You'd always have fresh faces in QA. It always felt like someone was leaving and someone was joining. I think the result is you had a lot of people who just weren't trained, who were just expected to perform. I've been in jobs like this, dude. It's absolute hell. Like, I can tell you right now, it's absolute hell when you're brought on and you're not given the proper training, but you're expected to just perform like completely like right up here when you're training, and everything you've been told is right down here. So you're supposed to, you're going to be talking to your coworkers like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me do this? And they're like, oh, you were supposed to know that during training. Well, I wasn't told that during training. And they're like, but you're supposed to learn that during training. That's your fault. How was it my fault when I wasn't trained? Stupid. Testers at Treyarch aren't actually employed by the studio or its parent company, Activision. Like testers at many other big game studios, they technically work for an outsourcing company called Volt. And they're not the only ones. If the tester's located on the bottom of Treyarch's hierarchy, the rest of Volt's contractors aren't too much higher. Earlier this year, the staff of Treyarch received bonuses for their work on Call of Duty Black Ops 4, as is typical at big budget studios. For the upper echelon of directors, leads, and executives, the money could be substantial. For the contractors, it didn't exist. For anyone who worked at Volt, a list that included not just testers but some coordinators and associates across all departments, they weren't eligible for a bonus. We see a bunch of new Teslas come in after the bonuses go out. That kind of feels bad for us. Our company parking lot is flat, so you can see all the Jaguars and Teslas, and that you've just gotten the beater cars around. You can tell that's probably a contractor. So all of a sudden, after all these bonuses go out, see like all these guys rolling up in Teslas and Jaguars and stuff because they got this big old fat bonus from putting out this awesome game that makes millions of dollars, right? They get a pretty big bonus. Well, homeboys don't even get $1. They don't even get $2. They don't even get $100 bonus. Nothing. So imagine how that feels for morale, right? You're putting in the same amount of work, if not more work, than homeboy over here, and then he just gets a big fat paycheck and starts rolling up in a Tesla the next day. How could that backfire? Contractors at Treyarch get different badges than the full-time staff. The full-time staff are blue, and the contractors are orange, and reminded that technically they don't actually work for Activision. They work for Volt. As a contract employee, I guess you could say you do feel a little different than everyone else in the studio. It's not outspoken, but it's the general demeanor and how things play out. For example, during an all-hands-on meeting earlier this year, Treyarch HR and management went over the results of quality of life surveys they'd given out to the studio. These surveys were designed to address eternal issues after Black Ops 4 and try and figure out how they could all improve for their next project. Problem was, they'd only given the surveys to full-time staff. Contractors weren't included. So QA guys, they didn't get it. We don't even get to be part of it and talk about how we're being treated. It's a common theme between contract employees feeling like their voices aren't being heard, and then you feel like you can't talk to a senior artist or managerial lead because you're a contract employee. You feel like your job is at risk if you say anything. Nobody says that, but that's just how you feel. Although some of these contract employees are junior level staff completely new to the industry, others had several years worth of experience, which made it insulting when they received, one called it, pretty low pay for pretty skilled labor. Without getting too specific so as not to identify those who spoke to us, we reviewed resumes of some Treyarch contractors who had multiple years of experience but said that they were paid around $20 an hour, not too far off from California's minimum wage, $12 an hour. Some said that they were when they asked for more money, they're told that Volt's restrictions made that impossible. One said that the full-time Activision equivalent of their current role would pay $6 to $7 more per hour, and especially a significant difference when accounting for all that crunch. Okay, let's go over this. Let's say Homeboy is getting paid $13 an hour, 40 hours a week, boom, okay, $2,080 a month. Okay, now let's say an Activision employee doing the exact same job, right, is now getting paid $19 an hour. Congratulations, Homeboy just made a full grand more than you. Did he do anything different? No, he just works for Activision. Sucks to suck, because you don't. When reached for a comment, a Volk spokesperson said that they'd be making a management available for an interview, but then they did not do so by publication time. So we might still get that interview, we might not. Treyarch contractors have a limited number of sick days but no paid time off. Taking vacations means giving up a salary for those days or weeks. Contractors are offered holiday pay for 6 days a year, including 4th of July and Thanksgiving, plus either Christmas or New Year's, not both. In December of 2018, however, they all received an email explaining a complicated new change in policy. Among other things, the email noted that in order to receive holiday pay from now on, Volt contractors must work at least 510 straight time hours within the 13 weeks preceding the particular holiday and, quote, must work continuously for 13 consecutive weeks prior to the holiday week. This new policy left many contractors confused, but in short, straight time meant core hours, meaning that overtime wasn't included. In other words, if you got sick or had to leave early one day, you were out of luck. Even the most punctual testers would miss a day or come in late, which would result in them not getting the holiday, said one former Treyarch tester. Once the policy change happened, I didn't know of a single person that received holiday pay after that, even the testers who had been there for well over a year. Contractors do get benefits, but not the same ones as Activision employees. Our benefits suck, said one tester who recalled signing up for a healthcare insurance only to find out themselves after getting charged several hundreds of dollars a month with no warning. And even though these meager benefits are temporary, when the employee's contracts expire, they either leave or be asked to stick around. Developers interviewed said that the promise of full-time employment is, as one described it, the carrot they're always dangling in front of the contractors. Very occasionally, Volt employees will get hired full-time by Treyarch. One of the biggest points of contention, something that Treyarch staff has been brought up multiple times in company meetings over the past few months, is the lack of communication. A lot of people felt like their voices weren't being heard, and they had no say in how things were handled. There's no cohesion between the different departments like multiplayer, zombies, and blackouts, like we're all working on the same stuff, but we're all in different worlds. People said that they felt like they couldn't talk to leads or seniors about issues that were affecting them. This is a huge thing that happened with Black Ops 4, and also with the community. This community has felt like we've had no talk from Treyarch. Treyarch's been like, silent about everything, and Grand Heist was the first time we got a roadmap for the game. That was really when Treyarch's like, okay, fine, we have to talk to you guys about what's going on with the game, because for that, Treyarch was like, factions, new Blackout levels, DLC, we can't talk to you about any of that. And apparently that's what's going on in the studio as well. That even at the people behind the game, they don't even know what's going on. They can't communicate. I say at the end of the day, we're all still working on the same game, and yet we're all treated differently. In the months following Black Ops 4's release, Call of Duty players grew frustrated with the gradual implementation of microtransactions and loot boxes. Some Treyarch developers said that they felt the pain. In interviews, many said they were just as frustrated with publisher Activision's never-ending quest for increased revenue, and they were frustrated with the lack of influence they had on it. It makes you wonder, where does all the money go? Obviously, it's not to Volt employees. One of the most common complaints I heard from lower-level Treyarch staffers was that despite putting in night after night and weekend after weekend, they were rarely allowed to offer creative input on the game. The sudden upheavals faced on both Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4 epitomize the struggles that Treyarch developers say they feel. Lack of communication leads to big creative reboots, leads to excessive crunch, and it all leads to an environment in which both testers and contractors feel underappreciated. People who are making the managerial decisions, the hiring managers, people in charge of all the departments who make the decisions day to day, they're the ones who benefit from the bonuses, the higher pay, the benefits, said one contractor. At the end of the day, we're all there still working together on the game, and yet we're all treated differently. Okay. Once again, I got to throw in my own 2 cents here and what happens. I worked a job like this where I was getting paid like garbage. I was just getting terrible pay, and I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. I wasn't even breaking $25,000 a year. I wasn't making more than $25,000, and my managers, they were making $115,000, $120,000 a year after taxes. I wasn't, my $25,000 was before taxes, right? I didn't even make $25,000 before taxes. Well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is I was putting in a lot of times 12-hour days, 6, maybe 7 days a week. I had very little notice about what was going on. Meanwhile, my managers, they just roll into the office maybe about 10, maybe 11 o'clock in the morning if they feel like it. They get to go home at 5 every day, and all they have to do is just review notes. Maybe make a phone call every once in a while, and they're making 6 figures. Meanwhile, I'm busting my butt, driving my ass off around everywhere, across the whole entire state, and I'm getting paid dick. And let me just tell you, from personal experience, that is an absolutely hell place to work, and you don't want to do that. Because when your managers are getting paid way more than you, that's the way everything works. Obviously, like, your managers and the people at the very top are going to be making way more money than you. But see, the problem comes down to how you feel as an employee. Do you feel valued, right? Do these guys, when you're asked to work overtime, are they like, oh, all right, you got to go do this. Just work a 14-hour day today. That's cool. Fuck you. Then you just feel like garbage. But if they're like, hey man, I really need you to work this 14-hour day today. I know it sucks. I really do. I tried my best to get you out of this situation, but it's not happening. Can you please just do it? I'm going to try and get this to not happen again. We really, we don't want you to have to constantly be doing this. We're going to be trying to do our best. I really hope and I really appreciate you for doing this. Let me take you out for a drink. When you feel valued like an employee like that, it's so much easier to do things like that. But instead, when your employer is just like, go do this right now. I don't care about you. I'm making 6 figures. I'm just going to roll up in my Jaguar tomorrow. I'm going to roll up at 11 o'clock. You better have all this shit done for me. Then you feel like garbage. And that's just kind of how it goes. That's what happened with Treyarch. That's personally what was happening with me. And just from my experience, it's awful. And I did not want to do that job anymore. And luckily, I don't do that job anymore. It was terrible. They say that many of the issues in this covered in this report are common in the video game industry. Several Treyarch staffers say that when I contacted them, they had been expecting to hear from me, as problems detailed in their Anthem investigation earlier this year echoed what they'd been through. They said that they hoped the continual exposure of these issues will help push for change, especially given the prolonged success of the series they work on. It's not like Activision's been hurting for cash. So this is also kind of why I'm making this thing, is that I want to spread this around. Because this is unacceptable, how employees at Treyarch being treated, totally unacceptable. And this also directly affects you and I when we play the game. Because of this is the reason why Black Ops 4 has all these bugs. This is why Treyarch can't communicate with us. This is why we have had, such little content and support for this game. Even though this is going to be the most supported Call of Duty game ever, that's a complete lie. Where's Factions? Factions are supposed to come at launch. And here we are, 10 months after launch? Where are they, Treyarch? Who knows? And this is why I'm doing this, because this is all BS, and this is what's going on behind the scenes. But they say, yeah, here, it's not like Activision has been hurting for cash, so why don't you pay your employees better? Last month, Treyarch informed staffers, except for the QA, they'd be taking a lead role in the new Black Ops game in 2020, one that takes the series back to its Cold War roots. There are concerns in the studio that returning to a 2-year development cycle after getting 3 years for each for the last 2 games will exacerbate the crunch and worsen the issues that Treyarch has been facing. Even with sister studios Sledgehammer and Raven working on the game alongside Treyarch, there will be will the development team be able to finish a new Black Ops in the next year and a half without killing themselves along the way, without burning out all their employees? Several Treyarch employees said they've grumbled about the long-running shooter series feeling stale, pointing to Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed as an example of how taking off a year can revitalize a franchise. There's been a new Call of Duty every year since 2005. So far, Activision has not shown any willingness to give the series a break. They're just beating this dead horse, honestly, is what's going on. Hey, you're live. Wait, what's going on? So, Treyarch has had lots of issues within their studio, and this is an article that Kotaku posted today about what has been happening with the development of Black Ops 4 and what's been happening at Treyarch, because it's frankly disgusting and their employees are being treated like garbage. And this also reflects on the game that we end up playing, because the game we end up playing has lots of bugs and issues and terrible communication from the developer. And this is basically where it all comes from here. But going back to it, there's been a new Call of Duty game every year since 2005, and so far Activision has not shown any willingness to give the series a break. Treyarch, and developers within the Call of Duty series, they say that the series is feeling stale, and they want to take a break. They don't want to do a Call of Duty game every year. They want to take a break, just like Assassin's Creed did, right? After, I want to say it was Syndicate. Assassin's Creed Syndicate in 2014? No, that was 2015. 2015 was Syndicate. They did not have a game come out in 2016. They had no Assassin's Creed game. 2017, they came back with Origins. 2018, they had Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I don't know what they're doing this year, but they took a year off. And what happened? Assassin's Creed Origins was a huge hit. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, huge hit. Because instead of making these super buggy, awful crap games, now they actually took their time, gave the series a break. So now people aren't constantly playing Assassin's Creed every single year and getting bored of it. Now they have a full year to recoup, play other games, and then come back to Assassin's Creed and play it again. Play more than ever. That's what Call of Duty employees and Call of Duty developers have been wanting to do. But Activision's like, no, we're making a Call of Duty game every year because we gotta milk until this cow is just completely dried up. There are complicated problems to solve. Some of the studio, however, there's a simple desire to feel like contractors and testers are part of Treyarch rather than a stratified lower class. More pay would be nice, said one tester when I asked about what they would wish to change about Treyarch's work conditions. But I think a majority of us just want to be treated equally. All of us give a shit about this game. Wouldn't give away our days to work on this game. None of us would be here if we didn't like Black Ops and the series as a whole. Why treat us like subhuman even though we work just as hard as you guys? So that's what's been going on at Treyarch, right? I'll get into this update in just a second. But, yeah. Campaign was scratched, 2 years in development. Multiplayer scratched, about 2 years in development. Blackout was made in about 9 months. And even now with Black Ops 4, terrible problems with QA. QA is being treated like garbage. And if you guys have wondered why Zombies had so many problems at launch, right? Remember all those issues that were going on with Zombies about how Zombies had all those bugs where you'd get so many blue screens, right? There was a bunch of tons of jokes and stuff about blue screens. I think it was Milo or Mr. Raffle sorry. He, pretty sure for Halloween last year, he dressed up as a PlayStation 4 blue screen for Black Ops 4. And basically all that came down to the fact that the game had a whole month less development time. The campaign was scratched 2 years in development. Multiplayer scratched 2 years in development. They had to make 4 maps for launch for Zombies rather than a traditional probably about 2. And yeah, so rather than having a full 3 years, okay, we're going to work on everything, it's we're just going to take away those full 2 years So you basically have a year to make zombies, multiplayer, blackout. Okay, good luck, guys. Oh, also you're treating your QA guys like garbage, so don't expect them to be putting out the same effort of work and same like quality as they normally would if you actually treated them like human beings. So that's why Treyarch had all those friggin' issues with Black Ops 4 Zombies at launch. And I saw a comment on Reddit about like what you would define labor as and how you'd compensate people like this. Like obviously there kind of always has to be like a hierarchy, but honestly, like when it comes down to it, right? I think personally, when Black Ops 4 was released for zombies, let me talk about zombies. I think that the QA guys were basically at the top of the stack for what was the priority at Treyarch. Nobody cared about more DLC maps. Nobody cared about DLC 1. Nobody cared about any new content for the game. Nobody cared about factions. Nobody cared about new weapons. Nobody cared about any of that. People wanted the game to work. People wanted... Ooh, I got a subscriber. Thank you. Ooh, preach. Thanks, bro. Thanks for the $2 super chat. Appreciate it, man. What was I saying? Sorry. So, what happened here is that nobody cared about anything that was going to happen. People just wanted to be able to play zombies and have it work. People wanted to play Blood of the Dead and be able to get past like round 20 without the game crashing. People wanted to do the Easter egg on Voyage of Despair at 9 without the game crashing. People wanted to just play the game without it crashing. People wanted to be able to hop into a public match without it crashing. People wanted to do the Easter egg without it glitching out on them and making it impossible to do the Easter egg. People wanted to do all this sort of stuff. People wanted to get to high rounds. Treyarch said that the like 212 round limit or whatever has been lifted. People wanted to go test that out. They wanted to get the world record like rounds for zombies. Can't do that because the game crashes. So I would personally argue that QA testers were the most important people within Treyarch when the game was released. Because that's all people cared about, was that the game was functional. People didn't care about these other guys and employees at Treyarch putting out new content. They just wanted their existing content to work. They wanted the game that they paid $60 for to actually function. But Treyarch was just too busy treating their QA testers and their employees like subhuman garbage and trying to pump out more microtransaction garbage to fill their own pockets with. That's what's going on at Treyarch. So we put out an update today that this morning Treyarch studio heads Dan Bunting and they say Mark Gordon, but I'm pretty sure it's Mark Lamia. I don't know where they got that from. Sent the following email to staff obtained by Kotaku. Right. I just got to point out here that apparently this email, right, I was a little worried about this when I saw this. I was like, oh no. Because I personally thought that this was going to be an email trying to catch whistleblowers. And I've heard from Kotaku, there's been sources that say that multiple insiders within Treyarch have received this exact same email, so it's not an attempt to like fish out whistleblowers. So that's awesome, because if they were trying to find the people who like spilled the beans to Kotaku and talked about all this, and they were going to try and find them and fire them, then we'd be having a whole different conversation here, and this would be even worse for them. So I'm happy that that's the case, but this is what Treyarch studio heads sent to Treyarch staff this morning. They say, Team, today Kotaku published a story that explores a number of reported behind-the-scenes issues in Black Ops 4's development. The first and most important statement that we want to make to the team is that as managers of the studio, we take the well-being of every single individual working here very seriously. We have a vision for the future of this studio that includes significant improvements to work-life balance, and we plan to achieve that through better project planning, streamlined production processes, and rigorous decision-making timelines. It is also our intention to maintain our commitment to increased transparency. Getting there will require time, hard work, and commitment. Most of all, it will require open communication. If you ever feel like your needs aren't being met, please do not hesitate to communicate actively with your manager. No one should ever feel like they don't have options, can't talk openly, or that the only choice is to take their concerns to the public. These conversations should always start with an honest dialogue with your department manager, and if that's not working, feel free to reach out to one of us. Game development is a wildly complex art and requires a diverse set of people and skill sets to do it successfully. It's important for all of us to foster a studio culture that treats all team members with respect. We appreciate the contributions made by all parts of the team in the name of the games we make. Sincerely, Dan and Mark. Cool. Oh, yeah, now they say Mark Lamia down here. I don't know where they got Gordon. Oh. Co-signed by Chairman Mark Lamia, but it was actually Treyarch co-studio head Mark Gordon. Oh. Huh, so I guess there is a guy at Treyarch called Mark Gordon. Anyways. Yeah. So, basically, Treyarch is sending emails to their employees saying that, hey, we saw this article, and we want to make changes. We want to have more open communication with our employees. We don't want you to not be able to feel like you can talk. We want you to be able to communicate openly. If you have any concerns, we want to hear them. We don't think that your only choice is to take your concerns to the public. If you have an issue with our game and with like your current working conditions, instead of taking them to Kotaku, we want you to be able to come and talk to us and change it. If you feel like you're not being compensated fairly, come talk to us. Like a normal working environment, right? Because that's what should happen. You should actually be able to talk to your managers about any issues. And I really think it's important here that they say, we appreciate the contributions made by all parts of the team. Because so far it sounds like they only care about full-time Treyarch and Activision employees. They don't care about any contracted employees because company parties, you can only be there for 20 minutes. Can't drink. Can't talk to any of the other guys that work there. Can't talk to the contracted people. Can't talk to any of the full-time salaried people. Can't do that. It's kind of BS. And I'm really happy that Kotaku did this. It is a massive, massive, awesome thing for the industry because this is a huge issue. There was a huge thing about crunch for Fortnite. So if you're interested in that Fortnite one, pretty sure it might have been Kotaku did that. I know Kotaku did the Anthem one about talking about what happened with Anthem. But yeah, dude, that's what's been going on with Black Ops 4. So if you've been wondering what Treyarch has been doing, where's this content? Where's factions? What's happening to Blackout? Why is all these decisions within Black Ops 4, why are they being made? Why does Treyarch always take one step forward, 2 steps back? Why does Treyarch finally put out an awesome game mode in Blackout, my personal favorite, Ground War, and then yesterday, why do they just remove it? Why do they put out an update? And in a Reddit post, they say, we made updates to Alcatraz. We added a submarine. But then when you open up your Black Ops 4 game, and you go into Blackout, Alcatraz is nowhere to be found. Who knows? So, this is what's going on with Treyarch. It is awful. It is disgusting. And I hope it stops. Because Treyarch now has a full year less to make Black Ops 5. And Modern Warfare seems like that's going to be the last Call of Duty game that really matters. Because if there is all this garbage and all this absolute hell that's been going on in Black Ops 4, then who's going to want to play Black Ops 5? Everybody has a sour taste in their mouth for Call of Duty, and I'd be surprised if Modern Warfare sells well, or if even people stick around for Call of Duty after this game, and I'd be surprised if Black Ops 5 did 90% of what Black Ops 4 did. I'd be surprised. So, hopefully Treyarch can turn it around. I really enjoy Treyarch games. I enjoy Black Ops 4 multiplayer, but decision after decision that Treyarch has made with this game has pretty much ruined it for a lot of people, and I'm on basically the verge of basically ruining it for myself as well. So I want this game to succeed. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate Treyarch. I don't hate Call of Duty. I love this series. Everybody here loves the series and the games, but it's unacceptable what's been happening, and it has to stop. It has to just end. Can't go on because it's complete garbage and it's complete bull. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll be back tomorrow with more videos, and I hope you guys really did enjoy this and that you found this useful. This really explains what's been going on with Treyarch and Black Ops 4, and it kind of makes me a little bit hesitant about being outspoken about any changes within the game in the future, because you never know. Because I mean, they talk about in here about like Reddit, how like, you know, when they put out an update, then Reddit just shits all over the update. That, I mean, obviously like really reflects on you, because then you're like, oh, we worked hard on that and they all hate it, so that sucks. So it kind of makes me hesitant now to be outspoken about anything within the game, because you never know. I mean, you know, like microtransactions, like you can't paint every Treyarch employee under the same brush. You can't, you know, crap all over Treyarch for implementing loot boxes, for putting black market weapons in loot boxes with no other way to earn them. You can't crap on them for this decision to put the Blackjack's weapons in Blackout, only if you've unlocked them or bought them. It's not, you know, your average Joe's decision to have terrible odds in reserve cases where you always get duplicates and the earn rates are absolutely terrible for them. It's not, you know, your average Joe working 9 to 5 or working 12-hour days or whatever. It's not your average guy making decisions to sell a $30 hammer. Instead, it's the studio heads. So if we should be pissed off at anybody about any of this garbage, it should be Activision and the studio heads. Your average guy at Treyarch has nothing to do with this. They're just working their jobs. The QA testers should honestly probably get a huge apology from the staff. I really wish that in this email that Treyarch sent out to their staff, I really wish they would have put out an apology for what happened to them, and they would have really apologized to their employees about how they've been treated, and they're trying to remedy that. They say here that they're going to be trying to fix all this stuff, but I still think that they should have made an apology, but we'll see. So that's Black Ops 4 for you. We can only see what's going to go on from now on, from here on. So yeah, that's about going to do it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. And hopefully this will definitely lead to some change. Because, I mean, I think that's views. So what Kotaku counts that as. So if that's views, 250,000 views in less than a day. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. So yeah, guys, that is the human cost of Call of Duty Black Ops 4. That's what's been going on. If you've been wondering about it, that's what's been happening. If you're wondering about the future of Call of Duty and Treyarch and Black Ops 5, then now you know. That's what's been going on. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed, give the video a thumbs up, spread this around, spread awareness about this, because this is just terrible. And not just for Call of Duty, for every video game out there, there's always crunch. And it's always really terrible. So this needs to change, because this isn't going to be ever getting any better unless we do something about it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.